All right, so we're diving into Why Men Love Bitches, huh? This book, I gotta say, the title's a real attention grabber.
Yeah, it definitely jumps out at you, doesn't it?
From what I understand, you're hoping this deep dive can help you navigate, dating and relationships, especially if you're feeling like maybe you've been a little too nice in the past.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women can relate to that feeling, right? Like, being too nice has kind of backfired.
Exactly, and that's what I love about this book. It kind of dives right into that, that sense of being taken for granted, or like seeing a guy's interest just fade once the chase is over.
It's almost like a switch flips, right? Once he feels like, okay, he's won you over, the effort just drops off.
And Argov's writing, it's so witty, tongue-in-cheek, It's like she's letting us in on this, secret society of women who have figured out men.
Crack the code of male psychology, yeah.
Right, and she calls them dumb foxes, which, it sounds kind of counterintuitive at first, but it's actually pretty brilliant when you think about it.
Yeah, it's like an oxymoron almost.
Right, because it's not about being dumb at all. It's about this clever, almost like stealthy approach to relationships, where you seem agreeable, but you're subtly guiding things in the direction you want them to go.
Exactly, like a fox, clever and cunning. But at the heart of it, I think, Why Men Love Bitches is really about this idea that men are drawn to women who value themselves, women who project independence and kind of have that I don't need you attitude.
It's that whole air of mystery, right?
Right, but it's not about being mean or manipulative or anything like that. It's about, I think, more about owning your worth and creating a dynamic that, keeps him engaged, keeps him on his toes a bit.
And she does such a great job of illustrating these concepts with real life examples and anecdotes. There's this whole section on how to renew the mental challenge in a relationship. So I'm really curious to get into that later.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That really gets to the core of, I think, how to maintain a man's interest long term. What are those deeper psychological triggers? And one of the, I think, key concepts Argov emphasizes is the thrill of the chase.
Oh yes. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. So Argov argues that men, by nature, they're competitive. It's just part of their DNA. They need a challenge. And this doesn't just apply to, sports or whatever. It plays out in their relationships too.
It's if you think about it, watching a Super Bowl game that's neck and neck, goes into overtime, the tension, the uncertainty keeps everybody on the edge of their seat, right? And that's kind of what the dumb fox, she knows how to create that in a relationship.
Yeah. So instead of being overly eager or always available, she understands that, a little distance can actually make him lean in more.
Exactly. And it's almost like reverse psychology, right?
Yeah.
The less you chase, the more he pursues.
Because, she's got her own life. She's busy doing her own thing. She's not going to just drop everything because he calls.
Right. And that ties into another important idea Argov calls the no cage rule.
This one made me laugh out loud. Argov compares a man feeling trapped in a relationship to being, stuck in a cage.
She's got such a great sense of humor about all this. But it's deeper than just humor, though, right? Men, I think, they have this, primal fear of losing their freedom.
Their autonomy, right?
Their autonomy, exactly. So when they sense that a woman is trying to, control them or box them in too quickly, they just bolt.
Yeah, she gives this hilarious example of a woman on a first date, and she's already talking about, getting a dog and having babies, instant cage overload.
Instant cage overload, exactly.
But it does highlight, on a serious note, how important it is to give men space. Not to make them feel like you're trying to encroach on their freedom.
The dumb fox, she gets this,
Yeah.
She understands that by creating that sense of space and freedom, she actually makes him want to move closer. It's kind of paradoxical.
Because he doesn't feel that pressure.
Right. He doesn't feel pressured. He doesn't feel suffocated. And, this plays right into another part of the dumb fox approach, how she handles a man's ego.
Oh, yeah. This section, it was so good. It's all about making him feel like a king.
Yeah.
But in a way that's, playful and subtle. It's not about being subservient, but understanding that, men, they thrive on feeling competent.
Admired,
exactly.
They're your protector, your provider, but without, diminishing your own strength or intelligence.
I loved that story about the woman who knew how to fix the circuit breaker, but she pretended to be totally helpless so her husband could come in and save the day.
It's classic, right? He got to be the hero and she got what she wanted. A perfect example of, I guess you could say strategic ego stroking.
Strategic ego stroking.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I'm curious, what's standing out to you so far about all this? Anything resonating?
What I'm finding really interesting is that it's not about like manipulating men or changing who you are. It's more about, tapping into your own to-be-end power and understanding the subtle dynamics of how relationships really work. We were talking about how the dumb fox kind of gets this whole thing about making a man feel like a king. But what I'm kind of wondering is how do you keep things exciting once the honeymoon phase wears off? Because let's face it, relationships, they can get a little routine.
I think that's a really important point, and that's where Argov's advice on renewing the mental challenge, it really comes in. She argues that men, they need to feel constantly, stimulated, and not just physically, it's mentally and emotionally too.
Like they need that spark, that element of surprise, right, to stay engaged.
Exactly. And she's really clear that, it's not about, playing games or being manipulative or anything. I think it's more about understanding that, like, psychology behind what makes a man, what makes him tick.
So it's about tapping into his, like, inherent need for novelty and excitement.
Yeah, exactly. And one way to do this is, well, it sounds simple, but it's just by not being predictable. Don't be afraid to, like, shake things up a bit, break out of those routines, and inject some spontaneity.
Like that story she tells about, what was it? The woman who surprised her date by taking him to a Tupperware party instead of, like, a fancy dinner.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
I bet he never forgot that date.
Oh, I know, right? And it's such a good example of how, like, you can challenge his expectations, keep him guessing.
Yeah.
Because when he's not quite sure what you're going to do next, it creates that, that anticipation.
Intrigue.
That intrigue, yeah. It keeps the spark alive. So, I think we should talk about something that can be a little tricky in relationships, and that's sex. Argov definitely doesn't shy away from this topic, and some of her advice might raise a few eyebrows.
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty direct.
She is, and one of her core principles, and this might feel counterintuitive to some people, is that sex should be seen as a reward, not like an automatic given.
So she's pushing back against this idea that, men should just have easy access to sex whenever they want it.
Exactly. She argues that, men, they're wired to want sex quickly and easily, but that women, they have the power to set the pace and the terms.
So the dumb fox, she understands the power of, like, delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification, yeah. She knows that making him wait a little bit, building that anticipation, can actually increase his desire.
So it's not about, like, playing hard to get. It's about, knowing your worth, setting boundaries.
And being in control.
Right. Owning your sexuality, being in control. Okay, so that makes sense.
And this ties into another point she makes, which is, like, being really clear about your intentions, especially when it comes to, to sex.
So no mixed signal.
No mixed signals, exactly. If you're not ready for something, you say so, and you don't ever feel pressured to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. And she uses this analogy of a traffic light, right? Red means stop, green means go.
And yellow means?
Yellow means, you're playing with fire.
I love that. That's such a clear way to think about it, setting boundaries, but in a way that's, playful, but also firm.
Yeah. Because, sending mixed messages can just lead to so many, misunderstandings, resentment. It can even, like, damage the trust in a relationship.
Absolutely. Now, Argov also talks about this trap that I think so many women fall into, especially when they're feeling insecure. And that's competing with other women.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in that, right? Trying to, like, prove you're prettier or smarter or more, desirable.
And it's such it's a losing game, really.
It is. And Argov reminds us that, you can't really control another person's behavior.
And trying to, like, win a man's attention through jealousy or games, it backfires.
It always backfires. It takes the focus off of what I think really matters, which is, your own value and worth. The dumb fox, she knows she doesn't need to compete with anyone because, she's already enough, and just as she is.
Right, like comparison is the thief of joy.
Exactly, and that brings us back to, I think, this word bitch. Argov, she uses it very deliberately, and it's important to understand the nuance behind it.
Right.
She's definitely not, advocating for being mean-spirited or, rude or aggressive. It's not about putting other people down.
Right. It's about having that strong sense of self-worth and not letting yourself be, treated poorly.
Exactly. The bitch as she defines her, is a woman who, she knows her own mind, she sets boundaries, and she's not afraid to stand up for what she believes in.
Right, like her values.
Right. Her values, exactly. She's confident, she's self-assured, and she's, not afraid to walk away from a situation that isn't serving her.
So it's about recognizing that you deserve to be in a relationship where you're, respected, valued, appreciated. And if you're not getting that, you have the right to move on.
Absolutely. And I think what I find so empowering about this book is that it really encourages women to take control, of their own lives and their relationships.
Yeah.
It's about shifting that focus from, trying to please a man or fit into some societal mold. Yeah. It's about really understanding what you want.
What you need.
What you need, exactly. And then creating a dynamic where those needs are met without sacrificing your own sense of self.
Or compromising your values.
Or compromising your values, exactly. It's about becoming that dumb fox, clever, confident, and, completely in control.
Okay, so how can our listeners start to apply these principles in her own life? Like, where does she even begin?
I think the first step is always self-awareness. Pay attention to the patterns in your relationships. Are you constantly over-giving? Are you putting his needs before your own?
Are you finding yourself nagging or trying to control his behavior?
Yeah, those are all good questions to ask yourself. And once you've kind of identified those patterns, then you can start to shift them. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is by setting boundaries. Make it clear what you will and will not tolerate.
And don't be afraid to, walk away from a situation that is unhealthy or disrespectful.
Because you have the power, I truly believe this, you have the power to create the kind of relationship you want. It starts with, I think, believing in yourself and knowing your worth.
We've been really digging into this book, Why Men Love Bitches.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, it's given me a lot to think about when it comes to, relationships.
There's so much in here.
But I think beyond all the tips and strategies and stuff, there's a bigger message here. One that I think a lot of women could benefit from.
I think so too.
And that's this whole idea of self-respect.
Oh, absolutely.
That's got to be the foundation for any healthy relationship.
It's not just about, knowing the right moves or mastering some technique.
Right.
It's much deeper than that.
It's about truly valuing yourself.
Knowing you deserve to be treated with respect right from the start.
Exactly. And not just in romantic relationships, but, in every area of your life.
In all your relationships.
Right.
We were talking about financial independence, having your own interests, a strong sense of who you are outside the relationship.
Yeah, I think those things are all so important for building that self-worth.
Argov uses this great metaphor. She talks about keeping your pink slip.
Ooh, I like that.
It's about having the ability to walk away if the situation's not right.
Right, knowing you can support yourself.
Knowing you can support yourself, create a fulfilling life on your own terms.
It's almost like having that safety net.
It is.
But it's empowering. It's not about being anti-man or anything like that. It's about having options.
Not feeling trapped.
Not feeling dependent on anyone for your happiness.
And ironically, that sense of self-reliance, it's incredibly attractive to men.
Yeah, it's it projects this confidence, this strength.
And a little mystery, which always keeps them intrigued.
Because you're not clinging to him for validation.
You're not looking to him to complete you.
Right, exactly. You're already whole on your own.
And that lets him relax,
Yeah.
Enjoy the relationship without feeling pressured.
Yeah, he's got to be responsible for your happiness.
Exactly.
Now, Argov also talks about, all the pressure that women face to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
To conform to these, societal expectations.
And how liberating it can be to just let go of that.
And just be yourself.
Be yourself, exactly. She encourages women to, express themselves authentically.
Quirks and all, right?
Quirks and all, exactly.
Embrace those imperfections.
It's about being comfortable in your own skin.
Not trying to fit into some mold.
Because at the end of the day, it's your unique qualities, even your imperfections that make you interesting.
Make you you.
Yeah, make you you. And, I think Argov's book it's such a refreshing take on all of this.
It's like an antidote to all the BS out there.
Exactly. All the noise telling women how they should look and behave.
Right.
It's a reminder that you are enough just as you are.
And that you have the power to to create the relationships you want.
Relationships built on, mutual respect, equality, genuine appreciation for who you are.
At your core.
At your core, yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. The true power of the bitch, as Argov defines her, it lies in her self-awareness.
And her commitment to her own happiness.
It's not about being, mean or manipulative.
It's not about playing games.
It's about owning your worth and creating a life that is truly fulfilling.
With or without a partner.
Exactly. And if you can tap into that inner strength, that confidence, I really believe the right relationships will follow.
Not just romantic relationships either.
Right. All relationships.
Friendships, family, even, the relationship you have with yourself.
This has been such a fascinating look at Why Men Love Bitches by Sherry Argov. If you want to understand men better, navigate relationships with more confidence, I highly recommend you check out this book.
It's definitely worth a read.
Happy reading, deep divers.